Thank you very much, dear Madam Minister Tsakri, my dear colleague, former Minister Dirianis, members of the Parliament, mayors, consul generals, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and especially dear Angelos and Alex. Thank you very much for organizing this great session, this great event. And after two excellent presentations, my question is what to add? Because the colleagues summarized it so well that I will have to really look through my notes what they haven't mentioned it. But I would like to start with the fact that for me it's very symbolic to be here in Thessaloniki, because you probably know that every July since the centuries we in my country are celebrating the arrival of two saints, Saint Cyril, Saint Methodius, who came from this city and brought to my country the alphabet, the Holy Scriptures, the Bible, and the Christianity. So I can tell you, every beginning of July we think of Thessaloniki, and on top of it we even have a free day in my country. So it's very popular holiday. But I think this is just clear proof that Thessaloniki for many, many centuries been this natural, regional, cosmopolitan hub where the ideas, the trade, been crisscrossing each other, and that you will be using your excellent geographical location to bring something new to your country and to your region. And therefore I thought that today, what is I think really a special date which would come to the history, that today there was a groundbreaking ceremony to put this very important strategic project onto the ground. The groundbreaking ceremony for Trans-Adriatic pipeline is taking place, and therefore I think the title and the place, how to turn energy union from vision into reality, couldn't find a better location, and I really would like to thank Angelos and Alex for inviting me and for organizing this forum here. I think from what I heard from both presentations, I do not introduce to you the concept of the energy union. I'm glad to say that it became quite familiar across the Europe, because I would say in general the experts and the politicians, they understood that we need to get rid of that former appreciations or former approach towards the energy policies as such, because for many decades we've been looking at them as, you know, optimizing the ways how we produce the energy, how we distribute it, and how we consume it. But of course this is a very old model which is not valid anymore, because with the climate change, with our ambitious climate policies, which I'm very glad to say now became global, with our emphasis on reducing greenhouse gas emission, increasing energy efficiency, with the way how research and innovation is affecting the way how we are transforming not only energy sector but the whole economy, it was quite clear that we need to develop new holistic concept which would really be advancing the energy union ideas across the whole 5 dimensions we've been so well described by Alex. On top of it, I think what was very much on the mind of the European leaders when they've been discussing, suggesting, proposing the idea of energy union, this has been also the lesson we learned with the energy security and the need to make sure that such a big, important market like Europe should be much more resilient to any shocks, who should have much more sustainable and secure supply of gas. So I'm very glad to say that since we introduced the energy union strategy in the February of the last year, we can say that there is such a broad agreement around the couple of general but very important lines. That the single European energy market will allow us to have better security of supply, would allow us to use the size of the biggest economy in the world to increase the competition on our markets, and will bring us better services and better prices. That we will be able to provide the consumers with more choice from the country but also from across the borders. That they will have to be enjoying more autonomy, more self-determination, how they want to use the energy, from whom they want to buy it, or if they want to become the prosumers, meaning the consumers who decided to produce their own energy. That the energy union would allow us to negotiate better with the third partners and plan for the future in a more cost-efficient way than it was in the past. And that together we can achieve our climate targets much more efficiently if we would look for the best ways, most cost-efficient ways how to approach it, how to reach it, and to use really the natural advantages each of our regions, each of our countries clearly have. But I know that for the energy union to happen, it's very important to bring it out of Brussels to the member states. I know we cannot build it in Brussels or in Berlaymont. We need to build it in Greece. We need to build it in Slovakia, in Germany, in all our countries. We need to get the support of mayors, because cities are extremely important players in this game. And of course, we need to mobilize public support for what is very important, very demanding energy transition, but has very close connections to the overall economic transformation linked with the current industrial revolution which is taking place all over the planet. And I'm glad to say that after I traveled all EU member states and talked not only to the politicians, but also to members of the parliaments, to the students, to the general public, I think that I can safely say that there is genuine support for this idea. And it's very important in the turbulent times we go through in Europe that we have an idea which is really, I would say, generally supported, something which is good, something which could be tackled better at the European level, and something which has a popular support. Because every citizen understands the energy bill, every mayor wants to build the smart city, and every politician knows how important it is to have safe supply of the energy for the fair prices. And I think that if it comes to the energy security, I do not have to explain to the experts like yourself that we are biggest energy importer in the world. If it comes to oil or gas, and that in the case of gas, what would be very much on the minds of the leaders who came here to Thessaloniki to participate in a groundbreaking ceremony, that 2/3 of our natural gas is actually imported from 3 main suppliers: Russia, Norway, and Algeria. If it comes to oil, it's even a higher percentage. 90% of the oil we consume is coming from abroad. But the difference between two is that if it comes to the oil, because it became global commodity, because we have very good contingency plans, because we know how to store the oil, we do not have such a worry if it comes to the energy security like we have with the gas, because we had quite a few incidents in the past which really highlighted how fragile the supplies are and how important it is to become more resilient. Therefore, when we started with the Energy Union project, the last year we focused on sending very important and strong signal to Paris to make sure that the climate conference would be a success and to demonstrate that we Europeans are ready to do our share. We proposed the reform emission trading system. We revised our energy labeling proposals, because energy efficiency will be more and more important in the future. And by that one legislation, which is very ridiculed by the journalists, we are actually saving that much energy which is consumed by Italy in 1 year. And that's a lot of energy, and it's only from the period since the legislation was introduced until 2020. And of course, later on I will touch upon the smart buildings and the efforts we want to do there. The potential is huge in Europe and especially outside of the European borders, and I believe that this could be one of the huge export materials and export technologies of Europe to the outside world, because everyone on this planet will have to look for clean tech, for safe technologies, for the technologies which could actually save a lot of energy. This year, I very often described as a year of delivery for the Energy Union. We started with the energy security. A couple of weeks ago, we adopted security of supply package, where for the first time we suggested that in Europe, we shouldn't just look after ourselves if it comes to energy security. We want that our regions in Europe, our countries together, will develop their contingency plans for the case that we would face a problem. How to make sure that protected customers in one country, but also in the neighboring country, are protected on the regional level. How to make sure that these countries would together develop their contingency planning in the case of need. We also introduce more transparency into intergovernmental contracts, into commercial contracts, and for the first time we presented the strategy for better use of LNG, because with the LNG and shale revolution, we believe that we need to show to the outside world we are open for the business. We see that LNG became very competitive, that there will be 50% more of LNG coming to the global markets between now and the end of this decade, and we just simply want to have LNG as a part of our energy mix, because we believe that it would help the competition, it would diversify the supply, and it would make our energy security much more reliable. But we also made sure that through our list of projects of a common interest and support for the strategic projects, we are working on a true diversification. For me, true diversification is when we are talking about new supply, new source, and new route. And this is exactly what we are going to mark today by marking another very important milestone in building Southern Gas Corridor, the Trans-Adriatic pipeline. Why is it so important? Because we are really helping to build something of the major proportions, and I believe of strategic and historic importance. Because for the first time, we will have the Caspian Sea in Europe. We will have the pipeline which would go through the region, which is very rich in hydrocarbons. Everybody knows about the huge reserves in Turkmenistan. Everybody knows about the potential of Iran, northern Iraq, and I will touch briefly in a second also on these new discoveries in the East Med. And of course, we know how Azerbaijan became very important energy player on global and definitely regional level, and how much the Azerbaijani government is supporting the project. And I'm glad to say that despite the fact we have very low oil and gas prices, this project is going on time, that we got all the reassurance that by 2019 the Caspian gas should be in Turkey, by 2020 should be in Europe, and therefore the work which we are going to mark today is so important for your country, but also for the whole region. Because we believe that the Caspian gas, but also the gas which would come through the new LNG possibilities in Greece, could be a very important factor how to make sure that Southeast Europe would not feel that vulnerable as it was before. I remember all the emotions when the South Stream project was cancelled, and where the next morning I had a meeting with all energy ministers in Brussels, and where it was quite clear that we need to find the alternative, we need to find the solution. And I think we decided very correctly, so let's rely more on ourselves. Let's make sure that our countries are so well interconnected that each of them would have access to at least 3 different sources of gas. Let's make sure that instead of the huge mega project, we would concentrate on very well developed network of interconnectors, which would give us liquidity of the market, which would give us access to be the pipeline gas, be the LNG gas, which is supplied for a good price and with no strings attached. So we created so-called KESEC, which is abbreviation for the group which is responsible for developing better connectivity for Central and Southeast Europe. And I'm very glad that we would have such a sequence of events that today we are marking groundbreaking ceremony for TAP here, but already next week in Sofia there will be 3 interconnection agreements between Greece and Bulgaria, between Bulgaria and Romania, and between Bulgaria and Serbia signed, just to make sure that these countries are better interconnected, but also it represents new evacuation possibility for the gas coming to Greece, be it through the Southern Gas Corridor or be it through your LNG terminal. Few months ago, I was in Revitusa LNG and I saw how much effort is being done there to revitalize, renovate, to bring new business model to this LNG terminal. I was told about the plans for Alexandropoli, potential new terminal, which is, I think, 300 kilometers from here, which could offer additional gateway for LNG gas for Greece and Western Balkans. So there are a lot of opportunities which we are currently working on and which we can, of course, profit if our countries are much better interconnected than before and if we would follow the same strategy. Of course, together with the Greek government, we are working very hard to make sure that the strategic IGB connector between Bulgaria and Greece would be done at appropriate capacity, would be bi-directional, because I think this would be the first very important step, how to open this new Greek potential to the Southeast Europe. We are working on reforms. We are working on improving the administrative capacity of the regulator, on proper application of the third energy package, because all this would be needed to make sure that Greek and South European markets are becoming more liquid and will become operated according to the same standards as the other regions in the European Union. When I was talking about the importance of the cooperation, of course, the project like the East Med is coming immediately to the forefront. When I was in Cyprus, I have to say that you feel the energy and hope. This year there will be visible, tangible progress in the peace talks on the reunification of the island. I wish the Cypriots lots of success and the best for this effort, because it would immediately change the atmosphere in the East Mediterranean. It would increase the investors' interest. It would bring new companies there, because peace dividend would highlight even more the huge potential which is gradually being discovered in the East Med. We already read the really very impressive figures concerning the Zor or Leviathan new gas fields. Every day we are getting new news about the gas explorations around Cyprus. And I think that this new potential could be really a win-win solution for the island, for the region, but also for Europe. So I know that feasibility study about the pipeline from Cyprus to Crete is being completed. Everybody agrees that it would be an engineering challenge because of the depth of the sea, but we have to wait for the results of the study. I heard from the promoters of the project that it looks quite promising, so we are waiting for the results, and let's see how we can really develop that wealth which was hidden for centuries in the East Mediterranean. But I know that Greece has a lot of potential going beyond the hydrocarbons. With your sun, with your wind, you can definitely become one of the major powers if it comes to the climate agenda, to the development of the renewables. I'm very glad to say that Greece is on the track of meeting all EU 2020 targets, be it in energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions reductions, or renewable energy. And I think it's very important, because the 2030 targets and all the roadmaps up to 2050 or the work which would be necessary to be accomplished if you want to have carbon neutral society by the end of the centuries, as it was agreed in Paris, would require all that energy, all that innovative spirit and all that experience we gathered so far in Europe. And here in Greece, we are very encouraged by several projects which you've been developing. The one on the island of Tilos, which is developing the first of its kind prototype battery storage system, which would be linked with a smart local grid. and would actually transform this island into the first energy autonomous island in the Mediterranean. And that's the experience we need to study carefully, because I'm sure there is a lot of places on our planet where the similar technology would be needed. Then, of course, you have 2 more projects which are financed by the European NER 300 financing on Minos, where we see the first commercial scale plant relying on superheated steam as heat transfer fluid, producing 50 megawatts concentrated solar power plant in the Crete, and so on and so forth. So these are the innovative plants and innovative approaches which, of course, are very impressive, and which are also developed on the basis of the abundance of sun which we all envy you, which you have here in Greece, and which could be used for renewable projects. If you allow me to conclude on telling you why I described the 2016 as a year of delivery, and why we are rushing so much with our project. This year I promised we would put on the table 90% of all the proposals we promised to do, and we included in our action plan the last year. So we will see that there will be 3 quite ambitious legislative packages still coming to the table of the co-legislators, meaning Council of the Member States and the European Parliament. The first one will come before summer break, and it would be about effort-sharing decision, which is still our commitment to the Paris Agreement, and which is very much linked with our proposal on ETS reform. Because here we would need to propose for each member state a concrete percentage by which they have to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from non-ETS sector, meaning buildings, transport, and agriculture. Therefore, we want to combine it with our communication on decarbonization of transport, and we want to also demonstrate to the global community that by these 2 proposals, ETS and non-ETS, we actually did our homework, and now we are ready to ratify the Paris Agreement. So the ratification documents for the Paris Agreement would be part of this package, and we hope that European Union would be one of those important players who would allow the entering into the force of the Paris Agreement as quickly as possible. In the autumn, we will be working on energy efficiency directive, and we also want to revise the directive on the energy performance of the buildings, because I think we already gathered some experience how to reduce the energy consumption in our buildings. But we know that today's technological advancement is actually allowing us to achieve more, to transform the buildings not only in more energy efficient, but to transform them in the smart buildings required for the future, when we would need to look for the synergies of infrastructures in the field of telecommunication, in the field of new energy developments, and in the field of energy efficiency. This is what several thinkers like Jeremy Rifkin and others are describing as the next industrial revolution, where we would need to actually synergize these infrastructures to make sure that big data economy of 21st century can take place in our countries. And these buildings can serve as a nodes for producing cheap energy, but also for storing it, for offering the charging stations for our cars with electrical hydrogen, but also for transmitting Wi-Fi signals for all those entrepreneurs who would like to use this new way of communications to develop the new models. There are several pilot projects taking place already today in Europe, offering this new business model, especially to the cities or the regions which have been negatively affected by the energy transition, where all the industries left the regions and the new industries haven't arrived. And the way how to transform these cities, how to offer them new business model, how to propose for them this new infrastructure for the new modern jobs is something upon which I think we would have to focus in the future much more than in the past. And this is one of the major ideas upon which we work with the mayors. There is a huge support for this in Covenant of Mayor, which is EU-sponsored organization. We have 6,600 mayors who are working exactly on this topic There is enormous interest from so-called Compact of Mayors, which is the similar group run by Mike Bloomberg, Special Envoy of UN for cities and the regions, and now we are looking for the ways how to create single platforms so we can cooperate even better and create more synergies between our cities and between our players. By the end of this year, that would be our last package, we want to present new electricity market design. All of you who work in electricity will know how complex it is because our electricity markets are overregulated, price signals are not working. We have problems with in some countries with the cost of renewables, with a better integration into the system, with opening of the markets to the neighbors, and we simply need to restore the basic features so the electricity markets could properly work. And at the same time, we want to present new research and innovation strategy for energy technologies because it's quite clear that we need to be much more focused on super key enabling technologies which could really bring us this qualitative change and could bring the EU research in this field on the high level. So this year would be very busy, and we would like to do as much as we can because we feel we have a momentum and because we also know that to put all these proposals into the real legislative framework, we need to get the support of the member states, we need to get the support of the European Parliament, and we need to have the time to negotiate. So we want to reserve 2017, 2018 for the proper negotiations, so we will transform these proposals into the new legal framework which would allow us this very important transformation. Last thing I would mention where we would need your support and where we would really very much welcome your involvement would be the debate, which I think it's important in every member state, on how to transform our societies, how to transform our energy landscape. Because we have an agreement, and that's very important already with our member states, that each member state, based on this new framework we are putting on the table, taking into account the Paris Agreement, that each member state will develop their own national energy and climate plans. They would not have only global agreement on how to fight the climate change. We would have not only the European framework for this energy transition, but we would have 28 compatible national energy and climate plans where each member state would set their own level of the ambition. Will describe how they want to fit into the energy union, what they are going to do in these 5 dimensions on our common project, and how they want to work with their neighbors. And I hope that the preparation of these national energy and climate plans would lead to the debate, to the discussion with the stakeholders, with the experts, with the society, because in the end of the day, you are the most important. You need to support this project. You need to help the governments, the companies to develop these new policies, to develop the new business models for the new energy companies. And only if these 3 levels, the global, European, and the national, would click together, only in that case we can achieve the goals we set for ourselves. So therefore I really am very obliged and thankful that we can meet with you here in Thessaloniki, especially on such a festive occasion like the groundbreaking ceremony for TAP. It's my second visit to Greece in a few months, and I'm very glad that Greece is so supportive of the project, which I think it's very important for the whole European Union, for Greece, and for this region. Thank you very much, Alex.